Hey guys. So, last lesson before we get into the exposition, and again, you can check out the timeline. Put all the videos up. You can kind of see all of it laying out in front of you. And again, we're going for a good long time on this book. Again, what I've tried to do with the exposition, as you can see, I'm breaking it down into the various chunks of material, so that way you guys can see, like, oh, he's covering chapter 3 here. Okay, he's coming around to this specific verse. And so that way, if you are looking in the book of Ecclesiastes and you're going, I don't know what that means, go to that video, cue it up, watch it. If you still don't understand, leave a comment in that video and I'll get to it as soon as I can. I'll put a side note in, or I'll put it as part of the main body. But you can kind of see how that all works. If the side notes have been helpful, please let me know. I've been trying to put that work in. Just released a side note on 14, dealing with the idea of pleasure. God does really, he does lead us with pleasure and pain. And those are the two things that he uses to kind of push us along, as we talked earlier. And I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying life. We just have to make sure it does not control us. But just because you deny pleasure doesn't mean you're anything special. So just keep that in mind as you go forward through this text. Solomon is not at all saying it's a bad thing to enjoy pleasure. So as we wrap up here, let's dig into this concept of just some of the final views of Ecclesiastes. So that way, as we go through the body of the text, you can understand this more fully. There's going to be several views. Now, as we take a look at the various views, just understand there's going to be some of these I agree with. There's going to be aspects of them that I disagree with. And I may come down on liking several of them. So just keep that in mind. As you get into it, there's a pessimistic view. These are the people who think, really, Ecclesiastes is just the cynical old man having cynical times at the end of his life. I don't think that at all. They don't think it fits with the rest of the canon, and I think it's because they don't understand what Solomon's trying to do. It's like listening to the first half of a sentence, not listening to the last half, and then saying, well, that was nonsensical. That's what's going on here. Again, different traditions argued whether it soiled the hands. We already covered that in a previous lesson. It did. They agreed it did. They laid it up in the temple like it did. And so this was universally, finally, accepted as part of the canon. There's also the fictional view, and that's the idea that several scholars have put forward that this book originated after or during the exile, and that it's a pseudonym. I can't say the word. It was published under a pseudonym. And it was put together after the exile, and like I said, it is either Solomon intentionally leaving out aspects of his life or someone pretending to be Solomon leaving out aspects of his life. I don't think we need to go this route, and we talked about that earlier. Again, they view the author as a man taking on a false persona of Solomon in order to talk about what he as Solomon would have learned. Just seems far-fetched. You don't need to go there. There's also the optimistic view. And those who take kind of a more moderate view of the word hevel, you don't need to quite say everything's pointless, everything's empty. It's more of like yeah, this is frustrating, but there's a point to it. Proponents tend to interpret that the author is trying to produce a positive outlook on life, and I do see some of these aspects. I don't know that I would completely say that hevel is completely positive, but I get what they're saying. And again, the author is trying to produce a positive outlook on life, and I think there's some grounds for this. Shows that life is a gift of God worth enjoying. If you saw my previous side note, you would see where I get some of that information. You also have a hedonistic view. This is the idea that Solomon's basically saying, live your life and don't worry about consequences, when he literally says, live your life, but understand you're going to be having to face the consequences. So hedonism is the idea of just live for pleasure. That is not what Solomon's trying to say. He does not say just live for pleasure. He says, I tried it and it just frustrated me. So if God gives you the ability to enjoy things, enjoy it, but don't live in sin. You've got an apologetic view. This is one of the views I mainly take. I think the book of Ecclesiastes was written to try to evangelize and basically inform the rest of the world about the God that the Israelites served. It doesn't use the covenant name, uses the word Elohim in place of God. And so I think that's important because it's appealing directly to kind of a non-Jewish audience. And that's what I think Solomon's trying to do here. He'll present the end result of seeking after pleasure, which is the empty fruitlessness of it all and the fact that you will stand in judgment before God. And so I think that's an important aspect he's trying to do there. And again, this goes back to those goads that we talked about. And again, Jim Berg has a whole lesson on it I would recommend looking for. But again, he's trying to goad people back into the proper mindset. You also have the remember the sovereign God view, which is another one that I take. So that's why I said you can take multiples of these. But again, it's showing the benefit of wisdom. I think the best way to kind of wrap your mind around a lot of this stuff is just to understand that there are several ways you can approach the book of Ecclesiastes. You can approach it looking for all of the examples of God's sovereignty. You can go through it looking for all the examples of goads. You can look at it, all the examples of nails to grab onto. You can, whatever you decide to focus on, that's what you're going to see. So if you decide to just go in this focusing on cynical aspects, or you go in through just saying live your life and don't worry about anything else, you're going to see some of those. But I think something like the sovereignty of God, something like the apologetics aspect, some of those are going to be more universal. Like you are going to see those no matter which tack you take. Again, it will not completely resolve the problem of Hevel. As far as wisdom is concerned, like wisdom helps, but it's not a foolproof advantage. And it will be an advantage, but it's not a guarantee. So I think that's helpful as we look at this. But remember, as we are studying the book of Ecclesiastes, and next time when we get into the text itself, just understand, and we've covered this before, but it bears repeating, God is telling us exactly what he wants us to know. He's not telling us everything that happened. So no matter which view you take, you just have to understand there are going to be things left out. There's going to be things that we could go, oh, we could add that. God chose not to. So just be careful. He may or may not approve of what's being said. All the Bible is it's telling us what happened and what was said. It's not necessarily giving us God's take on it. So that's where it's dangerous to, for instance, take a look at the book of Acts and say, this is how we have to do it. Because unless Acts is telling us, do it this way, it's just telling us how they did it. It's not saying you have to do it like that. And so that's the thing is here with Ecclesiastes. Obviously, there's going to be some straight up commands, but there's going to be some things that are just descriptions. And so the book of Job, I use it as an example because the book of Job is just hours and hours and hours of them talking. And God at the end comes in and says, hey, by the way, your friends did not say the right thing concerning me. So God actually steps in. And if you did not get to that point, you would be like, God clearly condones this. No, the actual specifics are, I do not condone this. What they said was wrong. And just understand that. And so the Bible is going to record things that God obviously disagrees with. But we need to weigh the scriptures with other scriptures. Now, next time we meet, we are going to start digging in deep in the book of Ecclesiastes. So tune in for that. But we have now finished all the background, and we can understand the book as we go forward. So I'll see you guys then.